In episode 375 of the Clive Barker Podcast, Jose and Ryan give their first impressions of the new book by Phil and Sarah Stokes, Clive Barker's Dark Worlds. That plus some Hellraiser and Nightbreed news and an update on our own book project. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and an advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspirational paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. Click the side banner and follow the link to the Etsy shop to have a look and buy one of his books. Texas friends, watch out for Don's booth at the Texas County Reporters Annual Festival in Waxahachie in October 29th. Quick editor's note here. You'll hear me saying in this episode that I had not received my copy of the book from Book Soup in the mail yet. Well, a couple of hours after we finished recording, my doorbell rang, and there was my package from Book Soup. If I can add a couple of quick impressions, based on actually seeing it, this book is large and colorful with the impressiveness and care of one of the Imaginer books. Okay, so let's go on to the actual episode. All right, well, welcome. This is episode number 375 of the Clive Barker Podcast. I guess it's afternoon. Good afternoon, Jose.
Good afternoon, Ryan. I'm here standing in the verge of a doorway to some dark worlds.
Yeah. Today, that's right, because today's episode, we're going to be giving our first impressions of Clive Barker's Dark Worlds. So you were lucky enough to actually get yours in the mail.
I did, yes.
Yeah. And I've read a third of mine. I'm on. I made it all the way up to Imagica. You know.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. I'm on the part where they're talking about Candyman.
Oh, okay.
Candyman 2.
Okay. So you're probably a few chapters ahead of me.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, I don't think that these are spoilers, but for people who don't know, the book is sort of set up in a format where every chapter is roughly like a year of Clive's life, or a release kind of a thing.
Yeah, so here's the blurb for the book. It says, a deep dive into the creative world and personal archive of the master of horror, Clive Barker, from Hellraiser and Candyman to today.
Yeah.
And so basically the book spans Barker's world, highlighting classics such as the character Pinhead, an icon in the pantheon of horror cinema, the Hellraiser series of 10 films, and a forthcoming HBO miniseries, fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
And the cult films Nightbreed and Candyman, the later of which was rebooted as a Jordan Peele production in 2021. And then it goes on to talk about the books, the sagas, the theater plays, the comic books. Yeah. It's very, very, it's very complete, right?
And yes, and I think that maybe we're diving ahead a little bit, because I did want to do our news from the Reef before we and that was my fault. I started talking about how the book is laid out, but I was thinking, we're getting too excited. Maybe we need to pull it back a little bit, and we've got a few brief news items to talk about, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, we got some interesting licensed merchandise from Nightbreed, right?
Yeah. It's Rucking Fotten.
Uh-huh.
RUCKING FOTTEN, I think .com. You can find their shirts. So they're Nightbreed shirts, and they say in Japanese Medion across the front of them, which is the Japanese title of Nightbreed. So I bought two. I bought the long sleeve one, and I bought a T-shirt.
Oh, you did? Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're going to have Nightbreed in purple on your sleeves for the long sleeve one and the T-shirt. That jacket they got looks really sweet. Like the satin-like jacket.
And there's even sweatpants.
Yes, there's even sweatpants. So Rucking Fotten, you can go to their website. They have their social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And this is their officially licensed collection that they licensed from Morgan Creek. And it's a cool looking. You got Kinski on one side. You got
Leroy Gom.
Leroy Gom, thank you. Yeah. You got Kinski on one side, Leroy Gom on the other. You got a picture of Cabal facing you with the carved up face with the symbols and the fancy teeth, and then you've got Decker on top with his mask, kind of like threatening, looming over the design. It's almost like the stuff that usually comes out by Supreme. So it's like these fancy, like very limited drops of promotional, items like this, licensed to merchandise, and they look very, very modern, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I bought the first two. I got the long sleeve one that's in the upper left corner. As you're looking at this website, we've got the show notes here so you can click on it. And the second one, in the middle on the top with the red with Cabal at the bottom there and Declar at the top.
Yeah, the sweatpants on one leg they say Nightbreed in green letters, and on the other leg they say a new reason to fear the night, which was one of the taglines.
Yeah.
And then the satin-like jacket has in the back, "Come meet the dead of night, Nightbreed."
Right. And that's reminiscent of the crew jacket, that they had at the time.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. So these things usually don't last long. I think they dropped last night at midnight as we record this on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's still some available. You could check out the link in the description in the show notes to see if you can still get one of these.
Yeah, yeah. So as we're recording this, it's Saturday, and this episode's going to go out on Sunday the 23rd. Hopefully they're still available. Because you're right, it started on the 21st of October 2022. For anybody who's listening to this years later, sorry, you're out of luck.
I hope you're listening to this while wearing your Nightbreed sweatpants.
Yeah, exactly. Nicholas Vince was on Spear Talk Podcast, which we've got a link to the YouTube of that. So that's cool, right? It's nice to see. And he was talking about his roles in Clive Barker movies. So talking about the Chatterer and Kinski.
This is episode 128 of Spear Talk, and he talks a little bit about his autobiographical one-man show, I Am Monsters, and being a host of the Chattering Hour podcast. And this is part of their Halloween 2022 guest series. So
okay. It's
about an hour and 5 minutes. And you can listen to that stuff at Spear Talk.
And then the last thing, this was something that you found that almost brought a tear to my eye. This was so cool. But Slashfilm did an interview with the Cenobite actors from the new Hellraiser film. And they talked about getting prepared for the roles. They were listening to the Clive Barker podcast and the Hellraiser podcast.
Yes. Right. Yes, that was really amazing, right? Yeah, I think it was the actress that played the Gasp. She said something about to learn some of the lore that she was listening to the Clive Barker podcast and the Hellraiser podcast.
Well, and she said that they were like more than one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, that is so cool, right?
Yeah.
That is so cool that they listen to our stuff.
Yeah, and if you guys are still listening, I don't know if you're all done with it now and you're not listening anymore, but if you're still listening, thank you for the shout out. That was so awesome, and thanks for listening, and I hope you're still here.
Yes, that was what a cool thing. Like we're going to be talking about this in the book, The Dark Worlds, that we also get mentioned there a little bit in the Nightbreed episode. But it's such a cool thing that we've been doing this for like 10 years. And it's finally clicking together that we do have an impact on certain things. And it's fun to know that, to see that actually be spoken out loud, that people listen to us about this stuff.
That was kind of humbling and I don't know, it just felt really good. Or I guess that would be the opposite of humbling. Yeah.
I actually have. So it was the actress that played the Weeper, not Gasp. So.
Right.
Aloranif. Right. She said. So when I did the audition process, that's when the research started for me. I made sure to watch the first 3 movies, and there are a lot of podcasts that out there. Clive Barker Podcast and Hellraiser Podcast that I actually would listen to in order to understand kind of the lore and what it's all about. So the research came during the audition process. Yeah. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you found that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it for our news from the Reef. And so with Clive Barker Dark Worlds, I guess there's a little bit of news about that, right? Because people are starting to receive theirs. Everybody who bought it from Amazon or from the Abrams publisher website have mostly gotten theirs in the mail by this time.
That's right. Yeah. It's being published by Abram Books. Imprint is called Sir Nuno's. You can buy it in hardcover, and I think there's also a ebook version that you can get.
And for us to be able to chat about it today, Phil and Sarah gave us an advanced reader copy so that Sir Nunos is written in diagonal across every page. When you're reading that copy.
Thank you so much, Phil and Sarah, for giving us an advanced copy that we could read while we were waiting for our books to arrive.
Yeah. I'm still, and for everybody that got the autographed versions, I think Clive signed them on the day that it was released, right, at Book Soup. So that's why he took that time to sign them, and then they're like, okay, now we're preparing them to ship. So that's why they're coming a little bit later than everybody else, because he had to wait for them to be officially released, and then he signed them, and then they're shipping them out.
Yeah, mine isn't signed. I pre-ordered mine from Amazon as soon as it came out. I just had to change my address because I moved. I've got it. It's such a big, nice, heavy book. It's such a beautiful book.
And it looks like it came shrink-wrapped, right? From what I've seen in everybody's pictures.
It has arrived shrink-wrapped for me. And with a sticker outside that says, "Inside the mind of the legendary creator of Hellraiser and Candyman," with an afterword by Clive Barker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read 118 pages out of 360 on the digital version. I'm super happy with it. And I think that, and we talked about this a bit briefly here before we started recording, but my feeling of it is that it's like all the research that they do for memory, prophecy, and fantasy sort of condensed down into one book that spans his whole career. In that respect, it's not as deep of a dive, so it's a little bit more accessible for every type of Clive Barker fan, right? Because the memory, prophecy, and fantasy, they really dive deep. This one is more accessible because it covers a lot more in one book, but it's also it's got a lot of cool facts that I didn't know. Reading through it, I was like, wow, I didn't know that. I should know that, but because of all the time that we put into this podcast, but we don't hold a candle in the cloud compared to Phil and Sarah and what they know.
We don't have Clive Barker in the closet where we can pull him out and ask him questions. Sorry. No, but I agree with you. This book, so informative, and it's if you're a Clive Barker fan, you're going to love this book. And if you're not, this book is also set up in a way that's almost like a roadmap to learning about Clive Barker's work. So you don't really have to be knowledgeable about his entire career to read this book. This can be a fantastic roadmap that points you on a journey throughout Clive Barker's work that you can go back to and start becoming, a collector of Clive Barker's work. The way that they explain and describe every single piece of work and how it fits into the narrative of Clive Barker's career and life, it's a great narrative, a great creative narrative that they got going here.
Yeah, and every one of those, they talk about what inspired him or what he was thinking about, oh my God, the stuff you learn about the Hellbound Heart or about how he wrote Cabal. It's like, oh my God, if I ever knew that, I completely forgot.
Right, like Cabal was one of the only books that doesn't really have a manuscript because it was dictated on tape originally, right?
Yeah, and I guess I didn't know if it was okay to say that because I was thinking about if is that a spoiler.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, would you call that a spoiler? I guess.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like the introduction. The way the book opens, it brings up Hellraiser because. Inevitably, that's what people remember Clive Barker from, right? They're like, oh, Clive Barker. Even the introduction is called Clive Barker. Oh, Hellraiser, right? Yeah. So they start with that a little bit.
This book gives me the feeling that from the old days, like the early 90s, right, when it's just starting to get into Clive Barker, and you're getting these books like like Shadows in Eden or the Dark Fantastic, and they're like, who is this, new like horror tour de force Clive Barker? We're going to teach you about him. And it has that feeling, except that this is more in depth than those, because those were like mostly like series of interviews and stuff like that. And they're like, kind of like, hey, this guy who made Hellraiser, well, he also does some artwork. And this is feels a little more like structured and in depth. And there's a lot of really cool, interesting facts like that, like what we just talked about.
it contextualizes all of this creative output in almost like contextualized within what Clive was doing at the time, how he was planning out his career, reflections of things that he experienced from childhood, and his own personal relationships. I would say Phil and Sarah Stokes' work is not just extremely clear, crystal clear, transparent, very accessible, and very described in a way that just really you can't put it down because you're reading it, even though, yes, there are chapters and each chapter is going to have a little break between one work and the next. But at the same time, there's this underlying thread, right?
Yeah.
That keeps telling you the journey that Clive Barker did from, his childhood all the way to like the new Hellraiser being put out recently. So this is the most up-to-date, clear and concise timeline of the creative endeavors of Clive Barker as an artist, as an imaginer, as a person who has dreams and aspirations and an outsider experience towards not just things like literature, theater, even society,
Yeah. On the shelf, I'm going to put this like in my Phil and Sarah, like Clive Barker archive section. Because I've got, it starts with Beneath the Remains and goes through the memory, prophecy, and fantasy books, and then the playbooks, and then the book of the interviews, the Father of Lies. There's 2 editions of that.
The book of nonfiction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then so I think I'm gonna put it right after the memory, prophecy, and fantasy books. I kind of feel like those books are like the parents of this one in a way.
To me, this book is a little bit like a marriage between Dean Winter's Dark Fantastic and Gary Hoppenstand's The Books of Blood stories, because it's got this academic analysis part to it. And then it also has the contextualization of what was going on with Clive Barker's life at the time.
Yeah.
And has that narrative, that chronological narrative that goes through the entire thing.
Right, yeah. So it's got the deep dive kind of stuff, the facts about where, like you said, where Clive was thinking, where he was going, what was happening in his career. But it also, for the new Barker fan, it describes like what Hellraiser is about, or what the Hellbound Heart is about, or Cabal, or the Great and Secret Show. So it's a really neat kind of introduction for new people, but also a factual biography.
And it's so illustrated, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and
my
it's
gosh.
got so many photos that we've never seen before anywhere else. So
yeah.
In that sense, what it brings to the table that's really, really new, apart from some of those new interview moments or new facts that they find out about certain aspects of certain projects, it also has so many illustrations, photos, behind-the-scenes sketches, manuscript images, right?
Yeah, stuff that you could only get from the Clive Barker archive.
Right.
So cool. If people were sort of on the fence about getting this book, if you're a Clive Barker fan, whether you're a new one or an old one, you should get it, I think.
It's not only mentally stimulating and mentally fulfilling in the sense that it keeps you like on this journey throughout Clive Barker's life and works, but it also has the visual stimulation of having all these amazing color pictures and sketches and early sketches of posters, early designs for book covers, all sorts of things that, and in some cases, things that you've seen before, but never in such a detailed pictures of. Like there are some really amazing scans of very iconic pieces of art that we've seen before, but I've never seen them to this level of detail. It's just like having the actual original right in front of you.
Yeah, and I've been super impressed by that. I was like, wow, you think it's just going to be one photo, and it's like, no, you keep turning the pages, and there'll be like 10 photos.
Yeah, of obscure productions that they did. Obscure to us in the historical sense because we weren't there and we didn't know about them at the time. But here you got pictures of like Dog Company, color pictures of Dog Company productions, Dog Company costumes and masks, a young Oliver Parker with his mustache, and Doug Bradley with his beard, wearing a fez hat, just behind the scenes in like some Dog Company play. It's just such a treat for us to be able to be present in those moments to things that we always wanted to be a part of, right? To know.
Yeah. We're going to get to talk about this a little bit more hopefully with Phil and Sarah, right? We've got that scheduled out So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, because they've been with Clive for so many decades now, and honestly, the work that they've done archiving stuff and analyzing it and criticizing it and interviewing Clive Barker over the years has just been tremendously rewarding.
Do you know when the Lost Souls website, not Lost Souls, I'm sorry, when the clivebarker.info website started? I kept checking Lost Souls every day, and it took me a while to realize that it wasn't being updated. And then I think I had heard from somebody on Roger's website that like, hey, no, go over here now.
I think that website really started around 2005.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So because before that, it used to be the clivebarker.com website.
Yeah, that's the one. So I kept following that for a long time, and it took me a while to realize that it wasn't being updated anymore.
Yeah. So I just went while we were talking to the web archive, and I looked up clivebarker.info. And so the early crawls of the website are from 2005.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's when it started. It still had the lament configuration Clive Barker on the web ring links at the bottom.
Oh, did it really?
Remember that? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you had like Clive Barker's signature animated, and it would be like written Revelations. Remember the background for the website used to be this kind of marble texture.
Oh my gosh, yes. Wow. Yeah, that takes you back.
That sure does.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I'm jealous that you have the book in your hands. I'm expecting, hopefully mine will come soon. I haven't heard if it's shipped yet, but really looking forward to reading the rest of it on the physical book instead of on my iPad.
I know. It's a completely different experience when you're just looking at the printed page for all these pictures and stuff. But they do a really good job of explaining and showing a lot of stuff from early work. They do it for all of his projects, but some of the older ones like Dog Company, they really dug into those archives. They really came up with a lot of like pictures of Salome and the Forbidden and Dog Company plays like Paradise Street and, all sorts of like amazing pictures.
And it breaks it down in a way that I wasn't really super familiar. Like, these are the plays that kept on going with the Dog Company after Clive had sort of left and was writing the Books of Blood, right? And the Dog Company kind of kept going. But after a while, they're like, okay, History of the Devil. How many times they kept on doing productions of History of the Devil while Clive was like, you guys go on without me. I've got, this other stuff I need to write. So after a while, they didn't have a writer anymore, writer-director anymore, and they just had to kind of stop.
I love the fact that they have a whole chapter about Rawhead Rex and Underworld.
Oh, yeah.
And how it's explained almost like as the path to Hellraiser. How he met Georges Pavlou, and a lot of stuff that ends up already reflecting some of the stuff that obsessed Clive Barker. Like in Underworld, of course, the major villain was supposed to have these needles, hypodermic needles, come out of his face at the end when he takes that drug.
Yeah.
And it says that it was shot but ended up in the cutting room. But then that was before he made Hellraiser and created Pinhead, which again would have needles coming out of his head. So,
or like the Forbidden, right? With the skinned man and the board with the nails in it.
Yeah. But I just love the way that Phil and Sarah compiled all of the meaningful data and all of the little details about things and just made it so informative. Like they tell you exactly how many weeks of shooting this movie had and break down, like, for example, they break down how many days of the shooting schedule were spent shooting Rawhead Rex in Ireland, how many parts were done here or there. In the Lord of Illusions, how many days they spent at the Pantages Theater doing Swan's thing. It's really very well broken down. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to reading. I haven't gotten to Lord of Illusions yet. And I guess for David, David had asked the question, right? Is Lord of Illusions in here? So I guess that answers that, right? Yes.
Of course, everything from like the beginning to from Clive drawing monsters eating people's heads with crayons with his mother saying, "We're very normal. We're all very normal family." To David Bruckner's Hellraiser being mentioned in this book. So this is it.
So when you first got the book and you mentioned to us that you and I and Roger were mentioned in the context of like Occupy Midian and in the director's cut of Nightbreed and the Cabal cut and all that.
Yeah.
Had you read up to that point, or did you just kind of skim through until you found it?
I skimmed through. I went straight to the Nightbreed chapter out of curiosity. I just wanted to see what they said, and I was like super happy.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I after you told me that, I mentioned it to Roger on one of his posts. So now he's gone and bought the book.
How wonderful. I hope he enjoys it.
Yeah.
It's a really good book.
So now even Roger has it before I do, because I'm still waiting on the Book Soup, autographed one.
Yeah, I hope that in the future I'll be able to get Clive to autograph this book for me.
Yeah.
That'd be terrific.
Well, and I think I had mentioned like I think it was on Twitter, like, hey, can we get an autographed version of this book? But I was thinking signed by Phil and Sarah, but
oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, but logistically, it's really hard to get. It's like if you gotta choose, right? Because Clive Barker's in California and Phil and Sarah are in England, and so if they're gonna set something like that up, they have to choose, and they thought, well, having Clive Barker sign it, is probably maybe what people are looking for. But it's also, but I would love to see it signed by Phil and Sarah. They put so much work and time and care into this book.
Of course. Yeah. This is just a seminal work. And like I said, not just for people who know everything about Clive Barker. This is also a roadmap for people who want to get into Clive Barker. This is the book to read. This is the book that you can go back to while you collect Clive Barker books. And then you go back and you read a little bit more about what was Clive's life like when he was writing Imagica, and then you can go read stuff about that and how he came up with those ideas. But always in the sense that this is a book to go back to after you read some of his works. But even if you haven't, this is a tremendous narrative about an amazing artist. And I think anybody would have a great time reading this.
Yeah, and this is a nice reminder, of those times in the 90s, right, when Clive Barker was sort of in the forefront and on people's minds as far as like horror and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he still is now. I mean, with the new Hellraiser on Hulu.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And the new Candyman last year.
The HBO miniseries that might end up being developed, and Candyman, and it's been a great few years for Clive Barker fans.
Right.
Deep Hill is coming.
Yeah, and Fear Eternal, and The Presence of This Breath, and Aberrat 4, those are all things that we can't wait until they get here.
Oh, one thing that I thought was very interesting is that the chapter called Islands, page 242, he's talking about Galilee and islands. There's a picture of an early Barker imagined world from 1969 called Shocking Pink. So there's an actual map of a world with cities and ships and islands and stuff, which kind of reflects what he would later do with Aberrat, with an archipelago of islands. And I was looking at this and I was just thinking about how cool it is that you came up with that map of the Imagica that you commissioned.
Oh, yeah, right. From Mark Stained art. So yeah. Oh my God. I'm so happy with that.
Yeah. So I can't wait for us to have that in a way that I could like get it printed out and framed in my office. That would be terrific. Is that going to be completed a little more? Or because right now I think you could see 3, circles, right?
Right. Yeah. Because the fifth dominion is just the Earth. From the map maker point of view, right? Whoever in fictional person that created this map probably wasn't allowed into the fifth dominion.
Yeah.
And the first dominion, nobody can get in there. And so, or if they go there, they don't come back.
Right.
So that's why it only has the 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that we're going to go in and fill those in. I think the idea was that these are kind of, from their point of view, these are the unknown.
So the book does seem to hit on all the points that are important in Clive Barker's career, not just the movies or the books, but also the paintings, the relationships, the properties that he created. Even Universal Studios Maze for Halloween work that he did is mentioned in this. So it's super complete, like Clive Barker's Harvest and Freaks. They mentioned stuff about that near the latest ones. Then you've got sections with, all sorts of amazing pictures of books that came out or magazine articles or conventions, the toys that were made by McFarlane and all that. I was looking the other day, you can still find some Halloween costumes from the Dark Bazaar on Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, you can still find that fish monster thing.
Oh, wow.
They must be just leftovers but you can still find some of those Dark Bazaar costumes.
That's cool.
I was thinking about getting one for this Halloween if I could.
I have the fish monster one still.
Oh yeah, is it just a shirt? It's just a shirt, right?
And a mask, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about getting that because I never really got into those things, and now it looks like they're really, really rare.
Oh yeah, right. It's tough because we want to deep dive into this book, but we haven't read the whole thing, and also people out there listening haven't read it yet, or haven't read the whole thing. So I don't want to spoil it either. But all I can say is that if you're on the fence about it, I'd say that this is a must-have for a Barker fan.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's hands down a must-have, and not just for your friend who's like a super Clive Barker fan who has all the stuff. Give this to your friend who's just seen Hellraiser. Maybe this will get him on the path to start reading more of Clive Barker's book. I think, like I said, books like this are always a great introduction. And if you're already into Clive Barker, this will definitely get you more into Clive Barker. And if you think you know everything there is to know, no, pick up this book because there's a lot more that you probably never heard and you can find in this book.
Right. Yeah, this will blow people's minds, I think. So I did want to give like a kind of an update for the people out there that are waiting for our book, the interview book.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's people out there that have been waiting, that pre-ordered it in 2017, which feels, like a lifetime ago. So I do want to say that the book is, from our point of view, the book is finished. It needs probably editing. I'm going to just come out and say, and Bobby is helping us to get us in touch with a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And she's working on sort of pitching this for us. If that doesn't work out, you and I had discussed we're going to self-publish it. We want this to be done, and we want to be able to help out the people that pre-ordered it, and we'll set up a second pre-order for the people who are, because that was a long time ago. So we will set up a second pre-order for those other people who, weren't in on that in 2017. And we're going to have this done one way or another. And I do feel bad that it took us so long. I think that on our part, it was naive to think that we could get it done in a year or something.
Right.
The transcribing the interviews was a painful, very difficult process. We were both in, our lives have changed a lot between 2017 and now. We got through all of that. We've got the book organized the way we want it. We've got our introductions written and it's all put together.
That's right.
Yeah, it should be done soon. It's not going to be as awesome as this book that we're talking about today, right? Clive Barker's Dark Worlds, but it's something. It's
going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and it represents 10 years of our life and all of the time in that 10 years that we talked about Nightbreed with people in interviews, which was a lot. The whole Occupy Midian movement from our point of view, and what was going on there.
We focused more of the Nightbreed discussions and interviews that we did. I mean, who knows if there might be in the future a more Hellraiser-oriented one. Yeah. But for now, this one is still in that stage that we were talking about, and hopefully it won't take long now.
It's a little bit out, when it was in our hands, it still took a long time, and now it's out of our hands, and, that makes me a little anxious, but I'm excited to see what comes of it. And one way or another, like I said, it's going to get done. Yeah,
but this is an amazing book. I'm talking about the Phil and Sarah one. It's a great book. And I love the fact that the last picture of Clive that we see And I don't think this is a spoiler. It's just a picture of Clive smoking a cigar, sitting in a chair. So I think that's a really badass picture. And then you've got this amazing bibliography that goes on forever, with all the exhibitions and all this stuff. And it's just such a wonderful book. I'm so happy that we're going to be able to talk to Phil and Sarah soon.
Yeah.
Because it's been a while. It's been a long time in the making.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. We've been trying to organize to have Phil and Sarah on, because in a big way they're kind of responsible for a lot of what we do on this podcast. Our news mostly comes directly from them. Their news. And
we are mentioned in the bibliography as well. There's for example, like I was looking at some of the references that they do, which is kind of inevitable that we end up in the references. But there's a one here. Mark Allen email to the Clive Barker Podcast at www.clivebarkercast.com, September 26, 2017. There's a reference right there in the bibliography.
An email from Mark to us?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep, that's mentioned somewhere in the book. So, yeah, it might be one of those things that we posted a blog post about some sort of...
Oh, I get you.
Yeah,
okay.
Some sort of email message from Mark Miller. So we're there. We're in the bibliography, and we're mentioned in Occupy Midian. I think it's really, really interesting that to get to this point and be able to read this book and know that even for the Cenobites, trying to find lore for Hellraiser, that we made a difference for some people out there.
Yeah, right. I mean, a lot of times, in a lot of ways, we're still sort of an obscure podcast. We're very niche. There's all kinds of horror podcasts out there that like to talk about everything, right? And we're focused on Clive Barker, and sometimes we feel like this, like we say on every episode, it's a labor of love by the fans for the fans. And so sometimes it's nice to get that feedback that, hey, there are people out there listening.
Yeah, and if you listen to our podcast, make sure you go check out the Clive Barker Podcast listeners group. It's on Facebook. That's where you can join that group and give us your feedback on our episodes. Tell us what you thought about it. If you guys have any suggestions or criticisms.
And our Discord. I've noticed actually our Discord community has grown a lot, but we haven't had a lot of discussion on there. So if anybody out there wants to join in on the Discord discussion, please do.
And since we're plugging our own stuff, why not plug tpublic.com/stores/BarkerCast.
Yeah.
Everything's on sale up to 35% off, so don't miss out.
Yes.
I know some people are frowning right now saying, oh, no, they're promoting their stuff now.
Yeah, the 35% off, I think that might be over today on Saturday.
I don't know, man. I got the BarkerCast 10th anniversary Baphomet design T-shirt. It was $22. Right now it's $14 for the next 13 hours. So
right. So when this is posted, that'll be over.
Yeah. Anyway, but you can still find some cool stickers, T-shirts, and all sorts of merchandise with our Jericho Squad, Cenobium covers, and T-shirts that we designed.
Yeah, I was thinking of going into that store and trying to figure out if you can do bumper stickers. Yeah, are bumper stickers still that would be cool. I might bumper sticker up my truck.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Coming up soon, right? We've got Commentary Classics. We'll be going to continuing on celebrating Hellraiser with Hellraiser 7 Deader. We will do Hulu Hellraiser commentary. So the 2022 Hellraiser, we'll do a commentary of that. We've sort of held off till more people had a chance to see it. And as of right now, when we're recording this, there's still no word about when people in other parts of the world are going to get it. I mean, Australia has some weird thing, and Canada, I think, has talked about how they have some other weird channel that's got it. That's something that I hadn't heard of before. And they're in talks with Paramount for Europe.
Paramount Plus,
Well, they didn't say Paramount Plus. They said David Bruckner said he was in talks with Paramount.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know, where it's going to end up shaking out. But fingers crossed for everybody in England and Europe that has waited, and they're not using a VPN and they're not using non-legal means to watch this and just waiting patiently. Hopefully you'll get it soon.
Yeah, it's really worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. And we'll be returning to Jericho Squad 77. So this is interesting. You were talking about those maps. So our map of Isordarex is also finished. And I haven't shown it to anybody yet because I want to reveal it on Jericho Squad.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see it. You have to show me after our call.
No, you're a player, so I think it's going to wait.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
No metagaming.
Yeah, and we've got Visions of Heaven and Hell episode, hopefully coming here soon. We've been working on some other stuff as well that is in the pipeline. And then the end of the year is coming up quick. I mean, I don't know how many episodes we're going to be doing in December. I know I'm going to be on a vacation from like the 28th of December through the 5th of January.
Sure.
Yeah. So historically, we haven't done as many episodes of, and I might set up more of the commentary classics for December. And as we sort of plan for ourselves for 2023.
Hey, maybe we could do a reading of Lost Souls for a Christmas treat.
Oh, like read the whole play?
I mean, I don't know. Why not?
I mean, play, what am I talking about? The short story.
Yeah, it's a short story, right? I could try doing that.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that legal to do that? I don't know. Is that...
I don't know. We can try looking into that and see if we can get any sort of permission.
Yeah.
Let's try.
That story has existed on websites and stuff.
Yeah, or we can discuss that story a little bit. I think we've already did that before, but that was probably 9 years ago.
Yeah, but not a reading. We just discussed it.
We just discussed it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there's some Clive Barker themed Christmas stuff that we could dig up for like Christmas, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, and we're scheduled also to talk to the people behind Lost Souls, the Clive Barker fanzine and website.
That's right.
CliveBarker.com.
Stephen Dressler and Cheryl Benson.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So we've got that set up for November also. So November is looking to be pretty cool. And one actually funny anecdote about that I can kind of share, is that as a teenager, my fanzine that I grew up with was Dread. And so those are the ones that I have. And so I was like, well, I've got to prepare. So I went out and on eBay and I bought a bunch of Lost Souls issues. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of them that I got were from Stephen Dressler. So
there you go.
Yeah, so I got them right from the source. So and my eBay account is CB_podcast. So they're probably, this will probably come up. I would imagine that they're going to say, I bet that was you buying those.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just saw like issues 0 through 4 signed on eBay, $270.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's not what I did. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I didn't go that route.
Well, it's going to be fun.
With some individual issues that were signed by Stephen Dressler and Cheryl and Clive Barker, but not like at that price and not like a whole bunch of them.
All right. So that's something to look forward to for sure. I was a member of Lost Souls, the fan club. I didn't get to read Dread until later after the magazine had already like gone out. Yeah. But so it was fun. It was fun. I remember sending a letter to Bent Dress Productions to sign up for Lost Souls fan club and saying, I forgot how much it was, but I told them, okay, I'm selling my soul to you guys for $24 and that's cheap.
Yeah.
And then they sent me the newsletters, but I only got like 2 or 3 before it too went under. So
yeah. I wonder if you could do you have those in Portugal?
Yes, I have. But like I said, I have only like 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah. I wonder if you could get those sent over with your.
Oh, I'll look into that. Sure.
Yeah, because that would be really lightweight.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Clive Barker Podcast as we give our first impressions of the new book that you can get at Dark Worlds, Phil and Sarah Stokes from Abrams Books. I totally recommend this one.
And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.